Welcome to part 2, discovering trace properties. In this section, we're going to learn how we can set some of these trace properties and learn how to actually discover what they are and what possible values you can set them at. So let's go ahead and recreate our plot from the previous video, which is the deaths from Texas over time. And we wanted to create a line plot with markers. And since there is no add line, we use this add scatter method to create this trace, and we had to set the mode to lines plus marker. So how do we know what this, what parameter, why this parameter exists, and what are the possible values over here? So one way to do this, of course, is to look at the documentation, which I have open over here. So this reference page, this is like all of the objects that Plotly has to offer. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the different traces you can add, and scatter is the first one. So if we go look over here, we'll get a look at all of the possible properties that we can set over here. The name, whether it's visible or not, and so forth. Now some of them, as you'll see, have like sub properties, and you can set those with a dictionary, and we'll see examples of that below. So here we come to the mode property, and we can see here that it has different values, lines, markers, or text, and you can also join them with a plus sign. So that tells you about the mode. X over here, we actually use this to set the X coordinates, so it tells you what type of value it could be, NumPy array, Panda series, and so forth. So all the properties are available here for scatter. Some of them have many of these sub properties that can be set with a dictionary, like something like marker. As you can see here, it has many sub properties itself, and actually takes up quite a bit of the space for the scatter plot itself. You can set properties on the line, as you can see here, right there. So anyways, that's one way to figure out how you can set these. So the reference page is nice. Another way is by pressing Shift-Tab. So this gives you the documentation in the notebook. And if you press this little up arrow over here, it will pop up like this. The properties are actually listed in alphabetical order. That's how they've created this method. So you can see all of them there. And the documentation is produced over here. It's not an exact replica of what is online, but it is mostly pretty similar. So if you scan down, we go down to like the mode, it gives you the documentation over here. It tells you lines plus markers like this. And so there's a lot of properties you can set, and it does take a while to kind of figure them out. So you can use the documentation, or you can use this little pop-up window by pressing Shift-Tab. Another way to figure out what you can set these parameters at is just to make a purposely wrong guess. So for instance, and this will cause an error, if I just put in some string, or it could be a number, or just any value that is not one of the enumerated like types that it tells you it could be, then you'll get an error, right? So, and then it gives you a nice message over here. And it says it has to be some combination of lines, markers, and text joined with the plus symbol. So that's actually one little technique that I use myself to figure out what are the possible values. Well, I'll just create an error, and I'll have them pop up. So that's an easy way to bring up the exact documentation that you need. Okay, so let's go ahead and change some of these. And if we put them down here, we can say, all right, this opacity, if I don't know what opacity, I can kind of figure out what it does, but let's just say I don't know one of the values. Well, I could pick one that's actually valid, but if I could just keep on going. So yeah, opacity is a number and must be specified between 0 and 1. So I can say, all right, it's got to be some sort of number between 0 and 1, and it controls the opacity of the line like that. So I've controlled it. Now, One other property we can set here is the marker. And let's say we want the marker to be like maybe a certain color. And we're like, okay, that's wrong. Marker is actually a complex property. So if you look here and we get the error, it says it can be a dictionary of properties like this. So it itself, this is one of those ones that is nested, and it has quite a lot of these sub-properties. So the way to do this, and I'm going to put this on a new line, is to create a dictionary. And we're just going to pick a couple of these, say the color. So the color is going to be some color, and maybe you don't even know what the color is. So if you, let's just pick something that it's not. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 is actually a valid color. But so again, I'm using this strategy of purposely erring to figure out, all right, what can I choose for color? Well, it can be a string that has RGB like this. It could be a hex string like this. So you have to know a little bit about colors. The easiest way is to just pick one of these web colors over here, a CSS color. So maybe I want it to be, say, forest green. As such. Okay, that's great. Now, if I don't remember the properties again, I'll have to purposely error, and I'll get back to the, the properties that color can be. And if I look down here, yeah, I can actually set the opacity specifically for the marker instead of the line. Size obviously makes sense. You can set the symbol as well. So let's just change one other property. We'll say size, and this is going to be in pixels. So maybe we can make it some rather large number. Now color needs to go back to what it was. So yeah, that's quite a bit too large. We can go back to 10. And the issue here is that there's just so many points. It's very hard to see the marker itself. So real quick, let's just say filter the data to the first 20 over here. Or maybe let's just do the last 20 actually, since that's where there's no data in the beginning. Just so we can see the markers like that. And now we can change their size. Okay, that's a little bit too small, but you can change it like that. Anyways, the idea here is that this is what's called a nested property. So a nested property has properties inside of it that must be set using a dictionary. So the main properties can be set just with your regular parameters like X, Y, this mode, opacity. But a property like marker is a nested property, and it itself has properties which we set with a dictionary. So a lot of times you'll see it broken down like this, and just format it a little differently so you can see it. And again, to find out what these properties are, you can either use the documentation, which is just the overall reference. You can use Shift Tab, or then you can purposely error once you find that to see the values, the possible values that it can be. So I like doing that. There's another one for line, and we can just set it equal to something that's not a correct value, and then line has its own properties. We can set the color, the dash, the width of the line, and so forth. So why not? We can just do this real quick, and I'll just pick a color that I know exists, and maybe the width. So we set it equal to red. The opacity here is controlling the overall opacity. Each one can have its own opacity. But anyways, so that's how you can set some of these properties in the trace and how you can discover them. So I find this quite useful. Of course, you can just look through examples in the documentation, but believe it or not, I believe it deepens your understanding when you sort of play around with it like this, and you kind of just toy around and see what works and what doesn't. So I kind of like using this methodology, and I believe in the long run it gives you a better understanding of how the library works.